That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we're going to go through and talk about some must-add waiver wire options. I know it says must-add running backs. Not going to lie, we're going to sneak some wide receivers in there at the end just because, I think you need to be picking these guys up. But nonetheless, before we get into anything, we have to give away some free Fantasy Flock Network hats. We do this every single video for the people that go down there. Drop a like, leave a comment, just because it's an easy way for me to get back to y'all for supporting the channel. Of course, I genuinely appreciate all of y'all so much. And our winners this video are going to be both Walter and Cade. Thank you for being a part of the flock. And of course, just go through and send me that email ASAP with your physical address. That way I can get that hat shipped out to you. And of course, if you want to just go buy a hat, you can always do so by deciding to join the flock on Patreon. When you join the flock on Patreon, you actually get access to our rest of season rankings that are updated every single week. You get access to our dynasty rankings. You get to be in a dynasty league with us. You get a Fantasy Flock Network hat. You get an in-depth podcast breaking down your own fantasy football team and what you should be doing to make moves to optimize for the fantasy football playoffs. Whether that's you're a contending team, you just need to be making sure that you're going to be putting up points in the playoffs, or maybe we just need to get there. And nonetheless, of course, go decide to support the show on Patreon. That should be it. Drop that like, subscribe to the channel. Let's dive into this, and let's lead it off with a running back that it's embarrassing that I'm including him on this list. He should not be on this list, but I went through and I just double checked on Yahoo Fantasy to see how many leagues he was rostered in. What the hell? AJ Dillon is available in 30% of leagues right now. Now, I will say that 30% number, it's most likely very misleading. I would be surprised if it's 3 out of 10 leagues, because just knowing Yahoo Fantasy, I'd imagine there are a lot of dead leagues in there. I'd imagine that there are some very shallow formats. We're definitely bringing up AJ Dillon just to say, if you're playing in a shallow format, you're in an 8-team, you're in a 10-team league that maybe has a super shallow bench, go pick up Dillon. I'll also be able to just talk about what our realistic expectations are for AJ Dillon at this time. And with Dillon, he's a top 12 running back. He's going to be that running back 1 in fantasy. I know this doesn't seem like a hot take, because this week in particular, he came out, he was the running back 3. With his overall points scored, he had 27. He had 21 carries out of the backfield here for Green Bay. But what's really interesting here is you actually had Aaron Jones playing half this game. Aaron Jones had 34 snaps compared to AJ Dillon's 36. So Aaron Jones obviously got hurt in the second half. Nonetheless, he had half the volume here. You're not expecting that to be the split going forward. With Aaron Jones in this injury, I will say I'm not going to be able to speak in depth with what this injury is, just because I'm recording this on Sunday night. I will say very, very late Sunday night. It's about to be 2 a.m. here, so you better go down there, drop that like in this video. But we'll be able to give those constant updates on Aaron Jones as we go through the week. We're live streaming every single night. But nonetheless, now you're going to be expecting AJ Dillon any week that Aaron Jones doesn't play in. He's not going to see 100% of the backfield snaps by any means, but he is going to get up to 75%. And that's going to be massive for an offense that we know Green Bay is going to be hyper efficient, and that they're going to look to run the ball consistently, as we have seen time and time again in 2021 with AJ Dillon. We said this in the top 10 lessons learned video. I want to be reiterating this. And I know it's a take that not a lot of people are going to like. Trust me, I completely get it. You want to go down to the comment section, tell me how dumb I am? I agree with you. But if you're looking at AJ Dillon, just to give you some context on his size adjusted athleticism, let me pull up what we had from Derrick Henry and AJ Dillon at the NFL Combine. And now, I am not one to say that the NFL Combine is a perfect way of measuring athleticism and measuring these running backs. Because, of course, you look at Derrick Henry with how they track his speed on the field. He is a significantly faster running back than 9 out of 10 running backs in the NFL. He's one of the fastest running backs in the NFL, and he's most likely significantly faster than AJ Dillon with his on-field speed. But nonetheless, just to put this into context of trying to get people to understand how unique and how just truly special AJ Dillon truly is. Derrick Henry stands at 6'3", 247 pounds. AJ Dillon, 247 pounds, the same exact weight, 6 foot. He has a BMI of 33.5 compared to Henry's at 30.9. So you would make the argument that if they're the same weight and Dillon is 3 inches shorter, Dillon's the bigger running back. Now, A.J. Dillon, 40-yard dash, 4.53. Derrick Henry, 4.54. They're running an identical 40-yard dash here. This is unbelievable. Now, it's not to say that Dillon is more athletic as Derrick Henry, and even if he was, he's not as good of a running back with how Derrick Henry can break tackles. But just to know that he possesses this size-adjusted athleticism, it should tell us that the breakaway run rate that we should have here for A.J. Dillon will be significantly higher than what we have from league average. And another thing that I want to look at with Dillon is the one concern that you had for him coming out of Boston College. I'll say I loved him in our Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues back in 2020. We were taking him at the beginning of the third round in 12-team Dynasty Superflex rookie drafts. Nonetheless, you're looking at Dillon, and what I'm very impressed with so far this season is he actually goes through and proves that he can catch passes out of the backfield. This was the concern that you had for him coming out of Boston College. Yet so far this season, with Aaron Jones playing, with Aaron Jones being healthy, he's had multiple weeks with 4 receptions. And with Dillon, you don't need him to come out here. You don't need him to be an Aaron Jones running back getting 4 to 5 receptions on a week-to-week basis. No, that's not in the range of outcomes. We just need A.J. Dillon to be able to get to 2 to 3 receptions, pick up an additional 20 to 30 receiving yards on a week-to-week basis. That drastically raises your floor and ceiling combination. Dillon here is a lock to be a top 12 running back. I'm very excited to see where exactly he's going to be in our running back rankings a little bit later on this week. Of course, we'll get that posted out, and I just want to know the details of this Aaron Jones injury and how much time we can expect him to miss. Those tests should come back tomorrow, obviously. Sounds like it's a sprain, but nonetheless, I really want to see the official report. Now, our next running back, also a running back that should be rostered in every single league. However, on Yahoo Fantasy right now, he's rostered in 30% of them. I think the exact number is 31%. Ramondre Stevenson. With Stevenson, another running back. Y'all know we love Stevenson coming into the season. And what was so funny is y'all know for those best ball leagues, we were drafting Ramondre Stevenson everywhere. And then he comes out and in the preseason, he dominated, which I was excited because we were drafting him in the last round of all those best ball drafts. And then once you see him dominate in the preseason, his price actually goes up. And I'll say preseason football doesn't matter that much. Of course, you don't necessarily need me to tell you that. But Ramondre Stevenson had 30 rushing attempts and 216 rushing yards in the preseason. He was averaging 7.2 yards per carry. Of course, you're not going to be expecting that to maintain, but just to kind of give you an idea, we've seen Stevenson be productive before, and now he comes out this past week, and I'm not going to lie, I was a little concerned in telling people to start Ramondre Stevenson right away, even though we knew he had the upside. He's Damien Harris that can catch the ball. I mean, we knew he had the upside. I didn't know if Bill Belichick was going to just be giving him this guaranteed starting workload, but no, he has it. 20 rushing attempts, 100 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Looks fantastic as he goes through with that workload. And also 5 targets out of the backfield. That is massive here for a PPR format. Y'all know I'm always the first person to bring up the receiving game usage for these running backs because it definitely has a massive impact on what we should be seeing for their floor ceiling combination. And if you're going to be comparing this to Damien Harris has never had a week in his entire NFL career, a running back that was drafted back in 2019 with 5 targets out of the backfield. I'm pretty sure Damien Harris has never had a week in his entire career with 4 targets out of the backfield. Yeah, I'm looking at the game logs right now. The best week you've ever gotten with Harris's receiving usage was in week 1 this year, where he had 3 targets against the Miami Dolphins. He's had 1 week in his entire career where he's even had 3 targets. This is why we were talking about Stevenson. He's going to continue to expand his role here. Now, no, Ramondre Stevenson is not going to be stealing this starting job from Harris. Harris will be coming back in. Harris is going to see the majority of the touches in New England, but I think Stevenson has safely gotten a little role in this New England Patriots offense, and he's going to continue to expand that role as the season goes on. And now you're looking at Stevenson essentially being in the same level as someone like Alexander Mattison, where you're not necessarily playing him whenever the starting running back there is healthy, but we know that if anything were to occur to Dalvin Cook, if anything were to occur to Damien Harris, then in this case, Ramondre Stevenson all of a sudden becomes a lock in our starting lineup. And now that we have had that clarity on this New England backfield situation, Ramondre Stevenson should be rostered in every single league, just as Tony Pollard should, just as Alexander Mattison. Now, our next running back, he'll be available in a ton of leagues. Donta Foreman. Now, y'all know, hook 'em horns. We got to throw that up there, but with Foreman, this is a running back that's very similar to, someone like Stevenson. You're not picking him up. You're not playing him right away, even though he did lead this backfield in both snaps and touches for the Tennessee Titans. He had 21 snaps here. They're essentially splitting it into thirds. So I don't want to get too excited about this. Maybe this is just the Longhorn in me really wanting to see Foreman succeed. He had 11 carries in this backfield. Compared to Adrian Peterson's 8, compared to Jeremy Nichols' 4, of course, you'd love to see this. And with Foreman, what I think we can actually see is I would not be surprised if the role for Adrian Peterson in Tennessee gets diminished. Because if you're looking at Adrian Peterson, if you just turn on the TV and just see how slow he looks on the football field and how he really looks like you're getting nothing at all. And B, if you're looking at these stats behind this, Adrian Peterson in his first week in Tennessee, 10 carries, 21 rushing yards. Week 10, 8 carries, 21 rushing yards. This is a running back that's averaging about 2 yards per carry. Obviously, yards per carry is not a good stat to be evaluating your running backs with. Of course, so many different variables go into that one statistic to go through and say running back X is better than running back Y because he has a better yards per carry. That's what 11-year-olds do. Of course, that's not what I'm saying here at all. But I'm saying you combine this with the fact that Peterson looks like he has no juice left at all. Now, Foreman, of course, not the same running back after that torn Achilles that he suffered. I believe that was back in 2018, maybe 2019. I don't remember. Nonetheless, still, you're going to be looking at Foreman as someone that does have the upside that I think Peterson doesn't possess. So if Peterson begins to get his role to shrink in this Tennessee Titans offense, where then it becomes a first and second down running back in Foreman versus a third down running back in Jeremy Nichols, all of a sudden, I think Foreman could be a running back that you could actually look to eventually play in decent matchups. Or if you did have an injury to Adrian Peterson, all of a sudden, you just have Foreman getting that guaranteed workload. But this is a different scenario than what you would have with just say, a running back that's in Baltimore, like with Tyson Williams right now. With Tyson Williams, there's no upside. They're always going to be having that as a 3-man committee. Here in Tennessee, it could be a little bit of a different situation if Foreman can continue to impress and if Adrian Peterson continues to look like he has nothing left. Now, our last running back we'll bring up really briefly. We'll talk about Eno Benjamin here. With Eno Benjamin, he comes out. I believe he only had 15 snaps this week. I know that a lot of people are going to say, okay, well, let's drop Eno Benjamin. Please don't drop Eno Benjamin. I actually went through and told some people to pick him up a week ago, but you're not picking up Eno Benjamin for him to come out and for him to be the starting running back here. We predicted Eno Benjamin. Everybody that's coming out to the live streams, how many times have I said Benjamin's going to see 25 to 30% of the backfield touches here? And let me do some quick math. He had 15 snaps out of a total of 55, 27%, right in line with what you expected. And that's not for you to go through and play Eno Benjamin, but why you like having Eno Benjamin on your roster. If anything happens to James Conner, Eno Benjamin becomes the Dearness Johnson of Cleveland. He becomes the Mark Ingram of New Orleans, where he's playing in an offense that we know is going to have a very productive running back one, whoever that may be, and he's the only guy left there. So knowing that James Conner has dealt with a long list of injuries throughout his career, and knowing that Eno Benjamin is just one of those injuries away from being a starting running back in one of the most productive offenses in football, I definitely think that you have to go through and load up on Eno Benjamin if the cost is just going to be picking him up from the waiver wire for free. Now let's go over to the wide receiver position. I'm going to be so brief with this first player because he has been on our waiver wire video every single week for the past month. I know you are tired of hearing me say it, so we're going to be extremely brief. Rashad Bateman. If you're just now finding this channel and somehow Rashad Bateman is on your waiver wire, even though we've been talking about him for the past month, you go and pick him up. And trust me, I don't want to list the same player over and over and over again. I know it's boring. I know the majority of us have already gone through and picked him up for our rosters. But looking at Yahoo Fantasy, he's available in 51% of leagues. How is that possible? How is he available in half of fantasy football leagues right now? As I said, a lot of those leagues are probably dead. A lot of those leagues probably have no activity. But still, at the same time, knowing that there are probably some 10-team leagues that you can look at Rashad Bateman from the waiver wire, this is fantastic. Y'all know with Hollywood Brown, that's a wide receiver we've been saying that you needed to be selling him high a few weeks ago because Bateman was going to be coming in and Bateman was going to be expanding his role in Baltimore. I'll get to Hollywood Brown a little bit later this week. Maybe an intriguing spot to buy low. I know you hate me, but nonetheless, here with Bateman, 8 targets in week 10, 8 targets in week 9, 6 targets in week 7, 6 targets in week 6. This is a wide receiver also. You go back to week 6 and 7, he wasn't even playing that many snaps because he was coming back from that groin injury. And keep in mind, this is why he didn't really get a training camp with Baltimore here. He didn't get the preseason. This is the just raw talent of Bateman. I think he continues to expand his role in Baltimore. I think we are seeing how talented of a wide receiver he is. And one thing that I just have to wave the white flag with, and I have to say, I was so wrong at the beginning of this season. At the beginning of this season, y'all know I was saying that this passing volume wasn't going to be keeping up with Lamar Jackson based on the historical rates of what you would expect from their pass to run ratio. Talk about just an embarrassing take and me not really giving enough thought to the situation and the fact that they had the injured J.K. Dobbins. They had the injured Gus Edwards. So of course this team's going to continue to throw the ball. Like, what the hell was I thinking? Y'all should have told me how stupid I was when I said that. Because you are seeing Lamar Jackson consistently go out there and have the passing ball. We need to stop talking about this Baltimore situation. I told y'all we're going to be brief. Let's go to our next wide receiver. Available in 90% of leagues right now. How is this possible? Jamal Agnew. With Jamal Agnew, he looks like he is the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville. I mean, if you're looking at Marvin Jones over the past 5 weeks right now, Marvin Jones over the past 5 weeks, bear with me on this. 5 fantasy points, 3 fantasy points, 23, 8, 5, and 5. Okay, we gave you the past 6 weeks. Nonetheless, out of the past 6 weeks, Marvin Jones has had 1 game with double-digit fantasy points. Go cut Marvin Jones right now. Cut Marvin Jones. There's no reason to have him on your roster. We can say the same exact thing here with Laviska Shenault. I mean, Laviska Shenault, I will admit, this is a wide receiver I like coming into the season if we were going to be betting on Trevor Lawrence being a good NFL quarterback and not necessarily just being so tied up with what Urban Meyer is doing to this offense. But nonetheless, Laviska Shenault gets 8 targets this week, which, of course, that's an encouraging sign. But just like what you're seeing here, Laviska, so far this year, said 74 points scored. We're in week 10. Yes, of course, he went through his bye. He's played every single week, and he scored 74 fantasy points. Drop Laviska Shenault. Going over, it looks like Jamal Agnew may just be the wide receiver 1. Now, I will say, this production, not sustainable. This week, 0 receptions. Okay? Let me put that caveat out there. He gets there with fantasy production because he has a very long touchdown run, which you can't expect going forward. He did get 5 targets, however. This is a player that has averaged, I believe, about 7 targets over the past 3 weeks. So I'll say, you know what, probably still prefer Laviska Shenault over him just by 1 spot, but they're all in the same exact tier. I think that if you're looking to roster Marvin Jones, Jamal Agnew is just the same player at this point. You can be looking at really either one of those options for you. Now, real quick, if you're playing in a super deep format, Marcus Johnson, obviously a great play. If you're playing in like a 16 team, a 20 team, a 24 team league, because, I mean, with Julio Jones going on the IR, Marcus Johnson coming out 100 receiving yards, not going to be expecting that going forward, knowing that A.J. Brown was lined up against Marshawn Lattimore. Tough spot for A.J. Brown. Marcus Johnson, an intriguing pickup for super deep formats, a very low ceiling there. Now, to go over to tight ends, let's talk about Logan Thomas real quick. Logan Thomas available right now in 47% of leagues. And with Logan Thomas, he has the best fantasy football playoff schedule you're going to find. With Logan Thomas, he should be coming back from that injury very, very soon. And with Logan Thomas, he's going into an offense that just lost Ricky Seals-Jones, the other tight end there. He led the NFL at the tight end position in a routes run in 2020. I think we need to go through, pick up Logan Thomas everywhere we can. And lastly, y'all know I said Jamal Agnew was the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville. He may be the wide receiver 1, but the number 1 receiving option in Jacksonville is Dan Arnold. Here with Dan Arnold, this is a tight end that on Underdog Fantasy, they had him 3 yards off of Marvin Jones. And I was sitting at it going, okay, well, yes, Arnold's been fantastic, but can we really be putting him in this range? No, Dan Arnold is someone that if you check out Patreon this week, he is going to be skyrocketing up my rankings here because he comes out yet again, just it's clockwork here over the past 3 weeks, because this is what we need to be looking at. I mean, if you're going to go back to the first week that you had Dan Arnold going over to the Jacksonville Jaguars, back then he had 2 targets. That didn't count. He shouldn't have even played that game. He got traded halfway through the week and then played on Thursday night. How is that even possible? If you ignore that, 8 targets, 5 targets, 10 targets, 7 targets, 7 targets. Over the past 3 weeks, 68 receiving yards, 60 receiving yards, 67 receiving yards. He's a 6'6" tight end, so you know that the touchdown rate has to come up. I mean, if this team can get trips to the red zone. So if the volume is here for a player with this frame, Dan Arnold's maybe a top 10 tight end for me rest of season. Of course, we'll be updating our rest of season rankings over there on Patreon. I'll definitely be giving y'all that official ranking most likely Tuesday morning so I can watch that Monday night game. But this is a player that just has such a high floor with his utilization in the receiving game in Jacksonville. I think that with how bad tight ends are right now, I would be going through and trying to get Arnold everywhere we can. Of course, now thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, please go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. And of course, go join the flock on Patreon. When you join the flock on Patreon, you get set up with a Fantasy Flock Network hat, a podcast breaking down your own fantasy team. You also get our rest of season rankings, our dynasty rankings in a dynasty league with us. So of course, take advantage of that. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great day.